I felt the bigger problem was not Casemiro but Lucas Paqueta, who had an absolute shocker, a 2 out of 10 first half.
Basically debut at the World Cup many years after he was this close to making it for Spain. But of course, he was leaked that he was going to be the Real Madrid head coach, and the Spanish FA
That
pulled
was
him.
such an insane story back in
I
the day.
know.
Yeah, it's Vinny Jr. now has as many goals as Ronaldinho has in World Cups. Like this is a legitimate stat.
Welcome to the Dugout as we review the 8 matches that happened over the weekend at the FIFA 2026 World Cup. So we had a quartet of games yesterday, highlighted, of course, by that game at the MetLife Stadium with Brazil and Morocco. Fantastic game on paper, and of course, on the pitch, it showed up in that way. That first half was amazing. It was just end-to-end stuff. Of course, Morocco taking the lead, Brahim Diaz, route one to Saberi, who put the ball in the back of the net, stunning the crowd. And then, of course, Vinny Jr. showing his class with a fantastic goal. I think that Brazil is in trouble if they don't sort out that midfield. I thought it was interesting that Ancelotti hooked Casemiro at midfield, but more glaringly for Brazil, the problem was that the player they brought on to replace Casemiro was Fabinho, who hasn't played top level football basically in a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Um, I think we talked about this. Brazil has a team of superstars, but in modern football today, the engine room is key, and I think that's where Carlo Ancelotti has to tweak this. Fair enough, Thiago missed a few spots, but this was not a vintage Brazil team. We hope they basically progress and they peak at the right time. Mustafa, your thoughts on Brazil, Morocco?
Yeah, first and foremost, I do want to talk about that goal, the Moroccan goal, because that was a one of the goals of the tournament so far. Because like I just love a nice chipped finish over the keeper, and it was so nice, right? But Vinny Jr. now has as many goals as Ronaldinho has in World Cups. Like this is a legitimate stat.
But if you think about Ronaldinho, he only had a extremely high peak from like what
Uh,
2001 till
Yeah.
He had a
2007.
short
He had
peak,
a
but
very
his
short
goal,
short
his
peak.
role also wasn't to
Ah,
score
of course,
goals.
it was
Well, yeah,
fundamental.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Fundamentally different,
Vinny's
but
goal, Vinny's role is different. He is truly the talisman of that team.
yeah,
His
yeah.
goal is to put the ball in the back of the net.
Oh no, I completely understand. I just think it's a funny stat, right? I completely know that Ronaldinho is the far better player, but at the same time, Vinny did show his class and showed why he's one of the best players in the world with that brilliantly 2-3 dribble movement into the top corner. But like more worryingly is that I find that they were getting shot, like they were getting a lot of shots. Like Allison really saved their butts a lot, man. Like legitimately, like the amount, like the like both it was very end to end. Both goalkeepers put up amazing performances, in my opinion. Like it was Bono, right? Bono is the Moroccan goalkeeper, if I'm not wrong. Like Bono and Allison both put up amazing performances. It could have been very easily 2-3 goals each side, if it was not for them.
I felt the bigger problem was not Casemiro but Lucas Paqueta, who had an absolute shocker, a 2 out of 10 first half. And seeing that Ancelotti did not pull him and went for Casemiro did not make sense to me at all. They need to figure out that number 10 role. If Neymar is going to be perhaps going to be the false nine, is he going to be the false nine, or was it just Lucas Paqueta stepping into that role of the 10 with the injured Neymar? They need to certainly sort that out. Maybe they could have thought about Matias Cunha at
Hmm.
halftime. That would have perhaps given Brazil a lot more juice. I'm not going to blame Igor Thiago. I mean, what do you expect from a guy who plays for Brentford? He is what he is. He perhaps should have put away a few more chances. But Brazil, they just don't have that vibe. I thought we had major expectations. It feels like Vinny plus 10 blokes at the moment, and he'll have to do a hard carry, to
Yeah.
be
It's
brutally
that
honest.
triumvirate, isn't it, AZ, that Casemiro, Bruno Guimaraes, and Paqueta, that they have to figure that out more than
Yeah.
anything else for Brazil.
Yeah.
Neymar didn't look healthy on the sideline. He was limping on the way
Yeah.
to the national anthems. We would be remiss if we didn't mention basically the star of this show, which was a young Ayoub Bouadi, of course, who basically ran
Mm,
that midfield for Morocco. You know, PSG are after him, Arsenal are after him. This is a young man who basically was everywhere, showed a lot of class, a lot of determination, basically controlled that midfield. We talked about it. I don't think this is a flash in the pan for Morocco. This is a team that'll go far.
yeah, and I also want to slightly mention how Mazraoui was doing in his like in the opposite of his natural
He
position at
seemed to
left.
be a zombie for United, and now he's back alive all of a
He's like
sudden.
he's
Well, that's what
like
Patrice Evra came out today and said that where is this Mazraoui been? We need this Mazraoui for Manchester United.
You've
But of
got the
course,
wrong shade of red, I guess.
it's the Premier League is such a different sport to playing in the World Cup. It's hard to say. And of course, Brazil's right back was also hooked. You know, he pulled that's the
Yeah.
other
He is like third, fourth
substitution.
option in the first place.
Correct. They got rid of Ibanez, who basically is a no-name person, and who is he replaced by Danilo, who of course hasn't played. There's a few holes in this Brazil team. Carlo has some work to do before the next game.
man, Carlo, Cafu, and Roberto Carlos used to be their right backs and left backs. That's
Uh,
what they used to be.
They would have
We
had Wesley for Roma. He had a pretty good season. He got injured,
yeah.
unfortunately.
No,
They
because
could
they're
Not
play
bad.
Ederson at right
right
back, and
back.
which I
Yeah,
think would be an interesting option. He could potentially slide in a little bit, cover Casemiro there, and that could solve
The
a few
one you
things. Let's
bought,
move.
Ederson, the Atalanta guy.
Correct, the
yes.
अब
Atlanta
आप
guy.
लोग हर जगह घुसेड़ लो अपने यूनाइटेड के लड़के.
तो
I
हम
mean,
लोग क्या
he
कर
has
सकते
some
हैं?
flexibility there. We're just trying to solve for Carlo Ancelotti.
It's not.
Let's
It's
move on to Qatar, Switzerland. This was, of course, a game in San Francisco, and Julian Lopetegui's basically debut at the World Cup many years after he was this close to making it for Spain. But of course, he was the leak that he was going to be the Real Madrid head coach, and the Spanish FA
That
pulled
was
him.
such an insane story back in
I
the day.
know.
yeah. It's
So anyway, the Qataris basically did a rope-a-dope with the Swiss. They basically hung in there, hung in there, hung in there. In the 94th minute, they basically scammed a goal, 1-1. Fantastic result for them. Everyone now in Group B has a point each. To me, their goalie was absolutely Abu Nada was fantastic. Had a great performance, one of the performances of the World Cup. But the Swiss have to be kicking themselves. All those missed
yeah.
chances throughout the game, and it came back to bite them. And this is not an easy group now for them to get out of.
Yeah, and I also want to mention like I am not grateful, but I am very happy for the Qataris, man. Like they got completely destroyed last World Cup, and like this is their first official World Cup point ever. So I am very happy for them. They struggled, they hung in there, and they got that late equalizer. You saw how excited they were. Julian Lopetegui will probably not have to pay for anything in Qatar anymore because he got them that one singular World Cup point. And there was some redemption for 22. But like the amount of like this could have very easily, let's be very honest, this could have very easily been 3-4 nil
They were
Switzerland.
playing with their food. Now, why baat? That's the
It was
problem with the
three
Swiss.
four. It should have been 3-4 nil to Switzerland. It is they should like this is a hard group, man. Like you have like it's a
Izzy, your
hard.
thoughts?
Yeah.
Why you playing with their food and so many chances that they didn't put past Abu Nada? And of course, it is a bit of a mixed squad. You have Vargas and Indoe who are kind of young. Mbolo is young, but then you have really aging veterans like Granit Xhaka. I was surprised that Ricardo Rodriguez is still starting for you. I spotted him way back in 2010 or I don't know when it was, and he's still there starting left back. Akanji is on the wrong side of 30 as well, as is his partner. No Jan Sommer there. They're still a decent team, but I think that this is a massive opportunity lost. It should have been 3 points because they were playing with their food, and now they'll be worried about finishing in the top two.
I agree. The one other takeaway for a noon game in the heat in California, this was a very well attended game. But probably, I would say about 80% full. Of course, the FIFA.
It's
Uh,
Fazul Batein, much ado about nothing, man.
Much ado
It's the
about
World
nothing. The
Cup, people
stadiums
are gonna be
have
there,
been
man.
correct. Have been
And America
fantastic.
has 300 million plus people, man. It's
Yep.
bigger than Pakistan. So why are people worried about attendances? Come on, man.
And also
Let's
like
move on
and also
to
like
the
one
evening games. Go ahead.
sorry, one last thing. I do want to mention to everyone like 1.6 billion people watch the opening match of the World Cup. Like everyone's watching. It is the biggest game of the event of the year for a reason. It is going to be the biggest event every 4 years for a reason.
Let's move on to Scotland, Haiti, of course, in Boston, which was I give FIFA a lot of credit. They nailed the locations because the Scots took over the town of,
See,
Boston, Massachusetts. The
Yeah,
national
very
anthem was
Caucasian
amazing.
setting there.
Correct. The flowers of Scotland basically booming, and of course John McGinn, who you guys both mentioned yesterday when we previewed this game, basically ramming home the goal and then them hanging on for dear life. Haiti tried to basically get back into it, but the Scots held on for dear life. I don't think that 4-4-2 formation of them is going to work. McTominay surprisingly had a quiet game. But 3 points in the bag for Scotland, and they're well on their way to qualification for the round of 32.
I got
They
nothing to add.
absolutely got the job done, and I always find it funny whenever I watch McGinn play because he looks like he's a sturdy like lad that he has, but he's got some wheels and he's got some skills, man. He's sort of like a tight end or something if you do an NFL comparison. He's got great feet, he's got great vision. He plays as a proper wing forward, and he really catches me off guard. Of course, I've been watching him for Villa for a while now, but still, it's quite jarring to see such a big guy moving so swiftly and having two wonderful feet. And
Yeah,
getting a World Cup goal, always special for the
yeah.
Scots.
Like
Always
he,
special. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to say like he's so talismanic for Villa, right? Like, because he's in like he doesn't score like many goals, but he always scores like the iconic goals, right? He scores now. He scored the one that gets Scotland their first like World Cup win in how many years? Like decades, right? 3 or 4 decades, I believe, right?
No, it's true. Go to the one surprising result of the game.
Yeah.
Australia, of course,
Oof.
not in an ICC event, in a FIFA event here, basically
Hmm.
taking it to Turkey in the beautiful city of Vancouver and beating them comprehensively 2-0. This despite less than 30% possession, but the Turks just never got going. They were flat. They just didn't have any ideas, and now they're in real trouble of missing qualifications. In this group because both the US and Australia, of course, on 3 points, Paraguay seemingly out of it on goal difference, and the Turks losing by 2 goals. They're in a spot of bother there because I think that those best third place teams, a lot of that's going to come down to goal difference. Your thoughts on this Australian performance
Yeah.
yesterday?
Yeah. First and foremost, Guller was completely silent that entire game. He was completely silent that entire game, and this is like we were very underselling this, not underselling this, but we were underestimating this Australian team for the entire for our entire preview series, because we were all saying like this is not going to be the same, like it's not going to be like the old Australia teams which had Premier League proven players. But like one thing to I think the one thing that is the funniest to me is, when Pat Cummins came back with the ICC World Cup, he had like 5 or 6 people to greet him at the airport. And then you watch them just score a goal, and there's an entire watch party in Melbourne and Sydney, and like there's thousands, hundreds and thousands of people going absolutely insane. Really shows you how big the sports are, and how big football is compared to everything else.
Absolutely. Plus, it's a bit of an underdog story as well for the Australians as well, the Socceroos. And I'm really, really disappointed with Turkey. When you leave Baris Yilmaz on the bench, you leave Kenan Yildiz on the bench. They had 20 plus shots on the Australian goal. And of course, the keeper Pat Beach played out of his mind, made more than 8 or 9 saves. He was doing a Tim Howard of way back in the day. It was a typical smash and grab job from the Aussies, but I did like the pace and the athleticism that they displayed. And like you mentioned, now it's looking tough for Turkey, and that game with the US, man, that's going to be very, very intense to say the least.
It might be a dead rubber for Turkey because they don't play the US till the third game. The US, of course, play Australia on Friday, and I think the winner of that game has basically got the group locked up. The US is a little bit lucky in the sense because I think if you asked Mauricio Pochettino, he'd rather play Australia after a win than Turkey after a loss. And of course, you mentioned no Premier League players for The Australians, although that goal that the young Aaron Kunda scored, he of course plays for Watford, was very well taken
Mm.
when he cut inside and basically blasted the ball.
Beautiful goal.
It was very well. I'm just surprised that Turkey, the way they came out, they need to sort of go back. They can still get out of this. You know, they can beat Paraguay, and if the U.S. have already beaten Australia, basically in that dead rubber, they may rest a few people and qualify that way. It'll be interesting to see. Let's start with some breaking news. We heard that the Tunisians basically fired their head coach, Sabri Lamouchi, after being absolutely smashed by Sweden 5-1. Mustafa, your thoughts on Tunisia making this move in tournament after one game?
Ah, God. It's it's a choice. I'll say that. Um, it is a situation where I think like in that group, even like one win would probably get you through. Almost like you probably just need a win and a draw. So that's what they're thinking. Probably they can get new manager bounce for 2 games to get through. But I just don't. If he wasn't the guy to for the tournament, why was he still there? And like, why are you firing him after 1 game? It's I just think it's a very weird situation.
Easy coming to that game, of course, Gyökeres and Isaac lead that front line. They each had a couple assists, but the main man was this young Swedish guy from Tunisian heritage, Yassine Ayari. Your thoughts on how his debut went in a World Cup?
Oh, he was absolutely phenomenal. We've seen him in the Premier League. We've seen bits and pieces of flashes of brilliance from him, but the way he ran that game with pace and quality, that is something that usually Sweden doesn't have. It used to be Ibrahimovic and Inshallah. Okay, Sara Kuch Ibra Kare, he was going to be the centerpiece. And of course, that time has come and gone. But now they used to be a very physical side, a very labored side. They used to depend on the aerial prowess rather than having genuine skill on the ball. But with this kid, they have some serious juice. They have Bergvall as well. He's another very exciting young midfielder. And the way they ran the show, I was predicting a score draw. But the way the Tunisians completely imploded after 60 minutes, some cracking goals coming in from Gyökeres, and good to see Alexander Isak. We didn't see that for Liverpool this season. Unfortunately, he got that massive injury, but you can see he's got that skill, he's got that ability, and it's typical of a World Cup. It basically feels that Sabri Lamouchi, he lost the locker room. It must have been a very bad experience there, and the players must have rebelled, must have revolted, so they had to take that executive action, and they got rid of him. And Sweden, outstanding performance. What a show they put on.
You know, Swedish fans are lucky. They went from basically Zlatan to Isaac and Gyökeres, and now this guy. Let's move to the other game in the group. Of course, Germany smashing Curacao 7-1, 2 goals by Kai Havertz, who now, along with Balogun and young Ayari, lead the Golden Boot with 2 goals apiece. It was interesting there for a while. Germany, of course, scored first. Really well worked goal. Curacao equalized, and then you had the hydration break. Mustafa, your thoughts? Did the hydration break take away from the momentum that Curacao had after that goal? Because then Germany scored again right after, and from there, it was just all downhill.
So this has been the entire problem with these hydration breaks throughout this tournament. They're taking out momentum for everyone. This is exactly what happened in Brazil, Morocco as well, where the momentum went away from Morocco and Brazil was able to score because of that. And aside from that, I do want to talk about like those beautiful 17 minutes where Curacao equalized, right? And like genuinely, like the Curacao coach was crying in happiness about this, and like because like yes, Curacao were probably not going to qualify. They were going to get pummeled. But like for those 17 minutes, they were going toe to toe with a historically great country in the World Cup. And I like all of the this is what the World Cup is. It
It's the
brings you
magic of the World Cup. Izzy,
exactly.
Joshua Kimmich, 2 assists. Your thoughts on that German front line, just that German machine and how well they performed? Yes, it was Curacao, but your thoughts?
Very exciting. We did mention that perhaps Germany are a generation early from what is this generation could achieve, pardon me, a World Cup early. They're still a pretty young side, but the way that in Mecha played, Nico Schlotterbeck scoring off that set piece as well, Jamal Musiala, we know what he's capable of. He's got some serious juice, and of course Nathaniel Brown, Dennis Undav, and Kai Havertz. He just seems to show up in these major competitions, whether it's the Champions League, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the Euros. He is a bit of a moody player. We're not sure how to really categorize him. Is he a 9? Is he a 10? Is he a 9.5? But the dude gets goals when it matters for the Mannschaft. And unfortunately, Germany ruined my prediction by conceding a goal. That's why I was a little bit miffed. But of course, you were expecting a stat pad session from the Germans. They do that very well. They're always efficient at these intercontinental competitions, and they certainly put on a show and really took Curacao to the sword after that brief 17-minute period that Mustafa mentioned.
That false nine can be tough for some of these other teams to basically have the defenses track. Let's move on to, I think, the match of the day yesterday here in Dallas between the Netherlands and Japan. 2-2 it finished. Definitely a tale of two halves. The first half was a hard watch, but then four goals basically in the second half. And of course, Japan probably a fair equalizer right at the end, and the stadium exploded. The Japanese and the Dutch fans hashed after them. They'd taken over Dallas. Of course, there were 20,000 members of the Orange outside the stadium. They had the orange smoke going. They had their bus in town. The Japanese had a fan fest the day before. Tons of folks. The World Cup was truly here. You felt it living locally from these fans. Mustafa, your thoughts on that second half?
Yeah, on that second, the one thing what I feel bad for Japan for is arguably their best player got injured and had to leave the pitch and was like lying down in Kubo, and like he nearly took the lead for Japan with that amazing like almost like 30 yards out shot that like that took a really good save to not go in, and he was incredible all game until he got injured. Japan, it was very obvious that the physical there was such it felt like very much Goliath, David and Goliath because of how big the Dutch defenders were, and it's just very funny to me that it was a header. It was a header that was the equalizer because that was the thing that was like troubling the Japanese all day, all game, where they were trying to get crosses in, but they were dealing with them so easily. And then
And deflected header,
yeah,
of course. AZ, did Koeman miss a trick? And what did you think of Van Dijk? Obviously, he scored a goal, but his defending in that game?
Well, we know that Virgil van Dijk has been on the downturn for a fair while for Liverpool now, especially the last 18 months. And honestly, I had predicted a score draw, so I'm happy about that. I got my prediction right on this one. Typical Japanese teamwork, dynamism, and that never say die samurai spirit, man. What a fantastic game. I really enjoyed this one the most. Some excellent goals in terms of technical quality as well, especially Christensen. I loved that goal, and he was a real spark, a real live wire. I think the Dutch shouldn't be too disappointed with this result. I think it's a fair one. I think they're looking in good nick. It's all just that one issue about Daniel Malen. Is he good enough as a striker? Can he produce the goals when they need him? He's a bit compact. He was an absolute fire for Roma in the last 6 months. Was okay for Aston Villa, but of course, being on the bench in a World Cup year, he couldn't afford that. So he came over to the Italian peninsula and was absolutely brilliant as Roma relied on his goals to get them into that Champions League spot. He looked pretty sharp. He had some decent chances. Overall, I think the group is looking good for both the Dutchmen and the Japanese, and I'm expecting them to progress.
no, I have like one issue, which is Sweden got a 5-1 win and in the same group, right, as Japan and Netherlands. So that gives them essentially a net run rate boost if we're talking about it in cricket terms. And
You just had to get that one in there.
yeah, yeah. So like this is going to be a very like I think it's gonna they're all going to pounce on Tunisia. Hopefully, where they get someone gets not nullified. But this is going to be a very hard group. A very good team
I
is
feel
going to
like
come.
one of the best thirds are certainly coming from this
Oh yeah,
group for
yeah,
sure.
definitely,
Correct.
definitely.
Almost certainly. Let's wrap up with the Ivory Coast just edging out in that game. This was a game held in Philadelphia, in a true Philadelphia style rugged game. Basically, Amad Diallo of Manchester United, basically in the 90th minute, scoring in the winner. And you could see how much it meant to Ivory Coast. Easy, quick thoughts on that last game?
Oh, very unlucky were Ecuador. They hit the crossbar no less than three times, and they certainly at least deserved an equalizer. But Amad Diallo stealing it in the with the left foot curler, beautiful goal that was. It was a balanced game. It was a physical game. It was a rough game. Diomande, he's been really highly touted. I think the price on him is 120 million pounds or euros. A lot of clubs bidding for his services. He certainly looked the part. And Cote d'Ivoire, it's always great when we see an African nation winning at the World Cup, irregardless of whoever you support, whether it be Cameroon, Ghana, whether it be Cote d'Ivoire or Senegal, whoever it is. It's always good to see the African continent coming to life at the World Cup.
Like I know like the score is only a 1-0 very late winner, but like the woodwork was hit on both sides multiple times.
Few
Like
times, yes.
it wasn't like the most exciting game, but it was a very fun game. And like as we were talking about, it was very fun to watch the Ivory Coast's attacking prowess against this Ecuadorian defense, which is incredible.
Let's go to the matches on Monday, June 15th. Just preview them quickly. We have matches in Group G and Group H. Group G, of course, Belgium and Egypt in Seattle, and Iran and New Zealand in SoFi Stadium in LA. And then Group H, Spain against Cabo Verde in Hotlanta in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And of course, Saudi Uruguay in the tropical climate, hot, humid Miami Hard Rock Stadium, greatest stadium known to mankind. Your thoughts on these? Let's get some quick hitters on this on these games. Mustafa, if you want to touch on Group H, Spain, Cabo Verde, and Saudi, Uruguay, and then AZ, Belgium, Egypt, and Iran, New Zealand.
Yeah. So we will go. What is it? Spain. Is it Spain and Cabo
Spain and
Verde?
Cabo
Spain
Verde.
and Cape
Yep.
Verde.
So Spain and Cabo Verde is obviously going to be a bit of a dull match right now. It is as it is going on currently, and they are obviously lacking Lamine Yamal, which is obviously contributing to to like a very dullish match essentially. And
They just don't seem to have that number nine with of course Alvaro
yeah,
And
Morata
we
no
talked
longer there.
about this in the review. In the
Oyarzabal is not that dude, man. He's just not making it
yeah.
happen.
And I feel like I'm feeling a score draw with Saudi Arabia and Uruguay as well. Like I feel like Saudis are like have been traditionally very decent in the World Cup and they're very organized. So I can see them doing something against Uruguay. And like yeah.
Looking at Belgium, Egypt, this should be a fun game, perhaps the best game of the day. I think Belgium might just edge it out. It depends, of course, heavily on Mo Salah and Omar Marmoush. If they get an opportunity or two, can they perhaps strike early? That would put a lot of pressure on the Belgians, who are beyond their golden generation, of course, but still got plenty of juice with the likes of Tielemans, etc., De Ketelare, to name a few. I think maybe 2-1 in that game feels like a fair result for the Belgians. And Iran, New Zealand, it's a bit of a it feels like a dour game here, but you never know. These low name or no name games can turn out to be entertaining affairs. I think maybe a score draw here, 1-1 or a 2-2. I hope for some goals in Iran, New Zealand. Could be an interesting game.
The one takeaway I had from the weekend was this is not a dour World Cup. All these games have been fantastically entertaining, lots of goals. Um, your just
I think with
quick
the
thoughts from
48
me.
teams, sorry to disturb you, Doc.
Go
The
ahead.
48 teams, it's that massive variance. So,
Mm,
the
Correct.
the
Yeah.
predictions kind of go out of the bag, so to speak.
Yeah.
yeah, but
No,
like
it's been fun. You haven't had many defensive stalemates, certainly no nil-nils. It's been good to watch, especially for the neutrals who, one of the downsides to football is always nobody ever scores. It's not the case here. The atmosphere has been good. Mustafa, any overarching thoughts on the weekend's games?
I just think everyone's just so happy. Everyone was saying like, oh, this World Cup's gonna be so boring. This is not gonna Yeah, the World Cup started and everyone's having fun. All the games have been at the very least entertaining, and we have had some actually really great matches with Brazil, Morocco, and Japan, Netherlands. And you've also had your high scoring, just judgings, which are also sometimes fun to watch as well. And every nation, to a certain extent, has gotten their due and gotten a moment where they can remember. Whether it be Australia upsetting Turkey, or even Curacao with getting
Even
that
Qatar.
Qatar, Curacao.
Last minute equalizer for Qatar, of
Yeah.
course.
So like there's so many things that, like, this is why this is the best event in the world. This is the best event in sports, because anything can happen.
AZ?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Mustafa mentioned, there's been something in there for absolutely everyone. Yes, the timings are a bit erratic, but of course, with 48 teams, you have some all sorts of crazy matchups. So we're certainly seeing that in this World Cup so far. And when the big boys, the likes of France and Portugal and England, have yet to take to the field, I think it's just going to get better. And so far, the first week hasn't been dull. Even Qatar, the Qatar 2022, the group stage was absolutely phenomenal. And good to see that the big boys like Brazil, not quite on their A game. Spain are struggling at the moment as well. So it's going to be fun. And maybe the mid card, the likes of Sweden and these guys, they can perhaps be the ones that are really to watch out for.
Thank you, gentlemen. Continue to like, subscribe, and follow us daily as we continue to review and preview these matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup.